Okay guys, so this video is gonna be about some gameplay of Age of Empires Definite Edition, Age of Empires 2. Um, I'm not a very good player of Age of Empires 2, but I've been playing Age of Empires, especially back in the day, back in 1998 when the game first launched, along with the first expansion named Age of Empires Conquerors. Um, So I decided to play this game. It's kind of a remake of the game with upgraded graphics and lots more civilizations and overall a better game, a modernized version of the game. So I played a match with a moderate difficulty with two bots. I mean, I had my own civilization and I was playing against two other civilizations. So the final result, I was the winner, but along the whole match, I was kind of, I was not doing very well. So I'm gonna make a little video about this gameplay that I made. So I'm gonna load it, and don't worry, the gameplay was like 4.5 hours. It was pretty long, but I'm gonna just fast forward the gameplay so you can see the overall progress, and I'm gonna comment the different points of interest. So basically we have these three civilizations. I'm here, I'm the blue guys, I'm the Franks, the green guys are the Germans, and the red guys are the Brits, are the British. So basically I'm gonna just fast forward it. This part is not very important. The most important part about this is that I was the last one to evolve. So everybody is in Dark Age now. Another point of interest that I want to remark before going forward is that obviously this is the thing that I was watching when I was playing. You know, the map was not very discovered. Although I used the scout cavalry to discover some parts of the map, I was never really very effective using this scout. So as you can see here, everything is in black. But if we just reveal this, you'll notice that in the other side of this forest barrier, you'll see all this with lots of resources that I never discovered and I never really used during the game. But if I was able to just bring down the trees with some kind of catapult or something, I would have made a very good use of this. I had a relic here, I had some stone, obviously I have a lot of trees, I have some gold, I have another relic here, and I have some more stone. And all of this was isolated from the game, so no one was able to get this unless I was able to bring down the trees, probably here. So if I did that, I would have gotten a huge advantage in the game, but unfortunately I didn't use this. So this is my overall terrain that I actually use. So as you can see here, there is an opening that connects to the other civilization. So this corridor was one of the entrances, one of the path that connects with my civilization. Here I had a lot of trees, so it was a good thing. I had a couple of stone and gold here and gold there, but and here, but not much else. And basically in the north, I mean, this is the more or less the west entrance, and here probably the north entrance. There was also a corridor connecting to the other civilization, to the Brits. So the Brits here, they had some resources and stuff, and they had only this corridor here, which was connecting from the north to these to the Germans, and the Brits were connected to mine through this north corridor that I already showed you. So everybody was connected. but it was like kind of a triangle. I think the guy with the best resources and the best terrain was the Germans, because not only they had a very huge space to exploit, they have a relic just very visible, very easy to reach. They have a lot of gold and a lot of stones. And not only that, but here in the back, where nobody was able to get, they had some really good water formations where they could have been able to fish. And yeah, so I think the best one was the Brits. I don't want to sound like a bad loser or something, but my own terrain I think was the worst, because it was the smallest place to revolve. If I had used this thing, this encapsulated terrain, maybe my terrain was pretty good, but for this stuff alone, it was not very good. I think it was the worst. And in second place, I think the Brits had a pretty cool place to evolve. So we're gonna just start fast forwarding this stuff. Obviously, the red guys and the green guys are gonna evolve faster. Everybody's in the Dark Age. Nothing really interesting here. Only just you just have the guys here, the little citizens trying to build houses, the farms, the basic stuff you do in the Dark Age, gathering fruits, building the mail. So all this stuff that you have to do in order to get the 500 points of food to evolve to the next age. So as you can see here, this is how I was doing. Not very fast, I have to say. I would have loved to be faster. So these are the Brits, these are the Germans, and these are the French, which I was the French. So I'm gonna just change the view here. You can see total score. I was always in third place. I was never in first place until the wars started. So that was a thing. So here they already evolved to the feudal age. I was still in Dark Age. You can see that the English evolved pretty quickly. I think they had the upper hand in these all this evolution of the society. So here are the Germans. And now I was able to go to the feudal age, but the rest of the guys, of course, were one step further, and they were able to evolve to the castle age. So as you can see, everybody's in castle age but me, which I'm still in feudal age. So here I was able to realize the two paths. So soon enough I will be making a wall to to have some defenses against invasions. So I'm gonna start building the walls. There was a wolf building the walls there. The other societies were growing pretty fast. As you can see, they were huge compared to mine. So here they are gathering resources and stuff, and I was able to create a wall. I also was making a watchtower, which I love watchtowers. Maybe they are not very efficient, but they are pretty cool defenses, especially at mid to close range. So I was doing the same here to be able to, develop without the pressure of being invaded. So I was there doing my thing. And here are the Germans. They already reached the castle age as well as me. I was already at this time in the castle age, expanding my farms, and I was trying to evolve the best I could. Here in the bottom of my little area, I was trying to do some deforestation to gather some wood, and I was able to gather some gold here and some stones, and I left these little gold resources for the last part of the game. So here, so as you can see, the English are expanding, and they made this little town center very near to my limits. And here you can see that the Germans are already assembling a pretty powerful army with some knights and yeah, some units that are already gathering to begin an invasion. Here you can see that English and Germans are, you know, they're kind of collecting resources together, even though they are enemies. And so here you can see the English already have some sort of pretty decent army. And well, the conflicts are going to start very soon. Here's a kind of explorer English knight that was attacked by my defensive towers. And so yeah, so far so good. I also decided to create a castle here in the limits of my north entrance, just to upgrade the overall defenses. Later on in the game, you'll find that this little castle is, in particular, was super vital to the, you know, to the survival of my society, because it played a major role defending my city. So yeah, I'm here. I'm already started assembling some sort of army with some long swordsmen and basic crossbowmans. I created these stable to create the units, barracks. I already created this little blacksmith house, the market. Yeah, so basic stuff. And I'm just producing some more archers, because I knew that I had walls. So I knew that in order to, if I was going to be attacked, the most viable option to attack myself from the outside was using some archers and just, you know, just throwing some arrows on top of the walls. So now here, nobody has started fighting yet. Just a couple of units everybody's losing because, you know, they are using the explorer, you know, the scout cavalry and stuff, but no but not a lot of serious battles just now. So the Germans are evolving pretty fast. They are creating some interesting battering rams to destroy buildings. So you're gonna have to watch for that. So as you can see, they are already gathering some interesting chivalry, cavalry, or whatever that's it's pronounced. You know, kind of a pretty interesting formation of horses, and some of these guys, the spearmen. And for the English, they have all these places. They are building a castle here, and also, as you can see, they have a pretty interesting army as well, with a lot of archers. So me myself here, I'm just holding out and creating a pretty decent army now with some knights as well. I also created a couple more, you know, watchtowers, guard towers. So all these little curious units that were here that visit my walls were greeted with some arrows. So I was holding up. I was trying to gather some resources and make a decent army formation. So as you can see here, the Germans started to destroy some British buildings. So yeah, so the Germans are actually gathering a pretty huge army that they are going to use to invade me. So here's the first major invasion, the first battle. The Germans decided it was a good idea to destroy my west wall. So I responded, gathering some archers that I have. But unfortunately, these dudes had these elite skirmishers, and my archers were completely obliterated after a couple of minutes. My towers were starting to get on fire, and also they effectively try to use the cab ram to destroy my walls. So I was holding together. I was trying to build a castle here, another castle to upgrade my defenses in case the guys were able to enter my kingdom. Also, if you notice in the north gates, I was also being attacked, so I was being attacked from both sides. At this time, well, my defenses were kind of being destroyed, and finally walls were destroyed, and the enemy was able to almost enter my city. So here in the other side, I was also being heavily attacked, and here finally they were able to breach my walls. Luckily, I had two very powerful castles. They were able to destroy the enemies with arrows, and somehow the enemy decided to retreat, but not so far, so they tried to invade again, and they managed to kill a lot of my units and some very important and vital villagers that I had. They also managed to destroy my castle. At this point I thought, okay, I'm pretty fucked, I'm gonna lose this one. Here there was a little confrontation between the Germans and the British. Not very major. This was, I think, the more important battle. It was much more critical. And well, I was able to repel the enemy. With a bit of luck, they were able to destroy my two castles, but at the same time I was building another castle. I also was able to generate some extra units in order to try to pose some kind of defense or resistance. So here the British had gave up the attack because they were being aggressively invaded by the Germans. So at this point the Germans had left. They left with my west defense is completely destroyed. They destroyed my two castles I had here and my walls, so I decided to rebuild the defenses in the west side of my village and just gather a pretty decent army, trying to generate more units. I also started creating some towers in case I was invaded again and they breach again, so I could be able to resist a little bit better next time, and my north defenses were still okay. So here you can see the war that was going on between between the Germans and the English. The Germans were able to breach the English city, but the English had a very strong, they had very strong long bowmans, which had a lot of a pretty decent range, and they can kill a lot of units from the distance. So the English were able to repel the Germans. The Germans, fought against the French and the British, so they lost a lot of important fighting units, but they still were fighting here in the connection between those two guys. In my front, I was still gathering resources as always. I was growing up my farms. My north, defenses were still okay, and my west defenses were almost restored. Bad thing is that I lost the two castles that I had, but I was getting my army ready for a next confrontation. So here the Germans and the British were fighting. Germans didn't have a lot of units compared to the invasion that they made to my kingdom, but as you can see, the English decided to invade my north wall. Then I also was invaded from the west side again, so I was completely fucked from two sides again. It's like I had a cock in my mouth and I had a cock in my ass. So I was being raped here. They destroyed my new towers again, and here there was not a lot that I could do. So I started to assemble a little army to defend against the destroyed walls. And as you can see, the Germans were going very heavy against me, and they were able to breach again from the west. But in the north, I was able to hold up. Especially because I had this amazing castle that was able to defend the north gate pretty well, and so I decided to make another wall here. So because I thought if I start building this shit, they will kill my villager, my builder. So I decided to just leave the castle, and just create another wall. I was running low on stone, as you can see, so I decided to finish the wall with some wood. So okay, so I was being invaded at the same time with the Germans. The Germans were able to breach and get to the center of my town, but also I had a pretty cool castle and some watchtowers here, some guard towers that were able to eventually exterminate the invaders. So I had still had some Germans here inside my city. So at this point I thought, okay, I'm gonna just lose this. I'm gonna be defeated. But luckily I was still producing some units. I didn't have a lot of gold either, so I was not able to produce a lot of cavalier or knights. But eventually my defenses, I told all the different farmers to go inside the town center, so they started throwing arrows along with the castle and the guard towers to the invaders, and luckily they were all annihilated. Here in my north gate I was being constantly attacked by the British, so I just used this trebuchet, but it's not very effective against units because it's very slow. The trebuchet is mainly created to destroy buildings, not units. So as you can see, every time I shot a little cannonball, maybe I was able to kill some units, but most of the time they just were able to avoid it, and they ended up destroying it. But here in my west, in the west side, I was able to reconstruct something with wood because I was running very low on stone. Here the Germans and the English were still battling. They had a little fight here, not a lot of units, but they were still, the good thing about it is that they were concentrated in them instead of me. Here in the north wall I was able to resist using the castle and some throwing axemen that I used. They were pretty expensive to produce, but I was able to create a little squad just to repel the couple of invaders that I had there. So the Germans are still invading the English, but the English mighty army were able to obliterate the Germans, and the British decided to invade the Germans. So, but they are also defeated, and the Germans are starting to create a castle. And okay, so I was able to repel the British in the north, and I was able to repel the Germans in the west. So I decided to assemble a new army just to be sure for the next attack. And now the British, apparently they lost interest in momentarily invading me, and they decided to invade the Germans now. So the Germans and the British are fighting very violently and very vividly here. And the Germans decided to invade myself again. So they are invading me. They were able to reach the walls, and I was able to, to defend myself quite effectively. And also some British were able to get in here. I don't know how, but at this point I thought that the Germans and the British were working together. I thought they were, they had changed, from hostiles to friends, because I saw some red and green mixed, so I thought they were friends. So, so I thought I was fighting against the two civilizations myself, but in reality, everybody was fighting. I don't know how the English did to go into my west entrance, because they had to pass from the Germans. But here, as you can see, there are a lot of French, a lot of British units. They are heading to my gates. My north gate seems very quiet, but my west gate is having a lot of action. I was also able to repel the invasion barely. I had a very little defenses structure, as you know, the walls are completely broken, and I had very few units to defend myself. I have a pretty solid structures of towers and castle that, so those were very vital to defend myself. So I'm gonna just fast forward this. Some English longbowmen were making my day miserable. So yeah, some battle here going on between the English and the Germans. The main battle was this. They were able to enter, but not so far. So I was producing constantly the cheapest units that I was able to do, which were the spearmen. So I decided that instead of just throwing one spearman at a time, that it was not going to be effective. I decided to gather a pretty decent group of spearmen here and just throw them all together instead of one by one. So as you can see here in this little corner, I was hiding and producing a decent amount of units. So once I got the decent amount, I decided to just throw them to the bowmen, which were actually trying to destroy my market. So so more English units are getting here. In the meantime, the Germans decided to invade them as well, so the English are being invaded, and they are invading themselves my civilization. So once I got enough spearmen, I just was able to repel them, and I was also successfully defended my place again. So after doing so, I started to create a very more, a more powerful army. Just by Pac-Man, and yeah, so some British and German confrontations, and here I decided to go more offensively because in the first part of the match I was playing very defensively and I was not attacking the enemy. So I decided to create a pretty decent conglomeration of units of infantry and try to be more offensive. So I assembled a couple of guys and started invading the Germans. So I killed everybody that I saw. I was greeted with this castle that completely fucked my units along with these with some German units, but at least I was able to do some damage. So I started producing more and more units to invade the Germans wave after wave, because I decided to be aggressive now. And I wanted to get rid of this castle because it was giving me a bad day. So now this is a little squad of English soldiers that are invading myself, but I had already all these Pac-Men assembled, so I was able to repel them with no problems. In the meantime, in the North Gate, some British villagers are just devastating. It's cool because they're not attacking. And so I'm assembling my army. The English are trying to invade the Germans, but the Germans have a very effective defense, and they started to build another castle. So they have a very powerful defense. They have 2 castles, and they have a couple of units, but the English are also, invading. In the meantime, I'm assembling my little Hellvardier. I upgraded the pikeman to the Hellbrider, and I am assembling my little army. And here the Germans are trying, but they are not able to invade the British. The British always fucks them in the ass. So the Germans are kind of in a point where they seem not to be quite decisive on on who to invade, me or the British. But here I have a pretty decent number of units. As you can see, I have 60 more units. So I decided to make waves after waves to invade the Germans. So I assembled my units and destroyed this little camp. And I decided to invade this. To give a hard time, just to make a distraction. I was not planning that these units were going to live a lot. I just wanted to make a distraction and just weaken the enemy. The Germans are here just fighting the British in the north part of the map. And I'm here, in the meantime, I'm producing more and more and more units. So the Germans are having a bad day, fighting the British in the north and fighting me, the French, in the east. So I'm assembling another new, a new army to invade the Germans again. So the Germans are wasting a lot of precious resources. I think the Germans are not using resources very efficiently because they are not fishing the fish and they have a lot of resources unexploited. Here this time I'm doing a lot of deforestation with my villagers and my farm is growing exponentially. My north gate is okay, and now I decided to create, to keep on growing my army. So the Germans are still trying to invade the English with no avail. They fail every single time. The British just obliterates all the German invasion. And here I'm just invading the Germans, trying to destroy their town center unsuccessfully, but at least I was able to just give them some headaches. And yeah, so I'm doing this time after time, trying to destroy them, trying to weaken their defenses. So also are the British. The British are invading from the north, so it's like a constant degradation of their units and defenses. So the Germans have these two very powerful castles. If you bring down these castles, you will be able to conquer the Germans. So I decided to make another invasion. So I tried to make some damage, and yeah, just producing another wave of units here, just to to make the Germans stay miserable. So the Germans are fighting in the north as well, with not a lot of units, but they are doing their best. And me myself, I just assembled wave after wave of Halberdiers. So I decided to invade again. So I assembled another units, and this time instead of being in the proximity of the castle, I just started to just kill the villagers and kill the units that I thought here. So the Germans are fighting here, the British, and so I decided to make another squad. So I trying to make most damage that I can, trying to weaken the enemy. So now I started producing a couple of cavaliers. As you can see, I didn't have a lot of gold, but I did have a lot of wood and food. So that's why I made so many halberdiers and so few cavaliers. So I decided to post a trebuchet here to destroy the castle, and in the meantime, to create a distraction and defense, I decided to bring my horses, and I was able to destroy the castle. So the Germans got very angry and they started throwing to me all they got. They abandoned the invasion to the British, and instead they just focused on me. But I was able to destroy them. I was able to repel their attack, the aggression. They had very little defenses, and they decided instead to go with the British. So they wasted their few units left, and yeah, I was able to produce more units. As you can see, I was always constantly producing these halberdiers, which were very cheap, and also mixing them with a couple of paladins at this point. And yeah, I was able to infiltrate the enemy. So I was trying to give my last punch to the Germans, just to make them lose once and for all. So I decided to make a more powerful army, just in order to not to stop attacking them with waves, but instead with a obliterating army. Here the British infiltrated. I don't know why, they did just a nonsense. And so I gathered my army again and assembled a trebuchet in order to destroy the castle, but here I'm trying to do that. I started fighting the British. At this point my north gate was quiet, so no problems there. I was growing my farms again, and so here I was already inside the Germans. The Germans, I was able to destroy the second castle, and the Germans were basically defeated at this point. So at this point I was just killing the villagers. I was sending wave after wave of units, and here you can see that the Germans surrender. So the Germans were defeated at this point, and pretty much the west side of the entrance was controlled. So no future attacks will be involved in this wing of the scenario now. So the only thing that I'm gonna leave here now are a couple of these halberdiers here in case the English decided to attack me in surprise. So I'm gonna leave these guys here, and I'm gonna focus inside here because the most likely probability was that English were going to attack me through here. So I decided to send an expedition squad of soldiers here to the north to attack the British. The British really didn't like that, so at this point the British are gonna heavily attack me and constantly. So at this point all the battles probably are gonna evolve in this north gate. So I decided to assemble a decent army and send wave after wave, but this British castle was always obliterating my units. Also, they have very powerful elite skirmishers which were able to destroy every single attack that I tried to make. So as you can see here in this front, I assembled this little wall of units just to guard, and the Germans are dead by now, and the English are just gathering resources here. The main battle unfolds here in the north part of the map, so I started creating units after units. I created this barrack here, barrack here, barrack here, and also the barrack here. I started using all of them together along with this stable. I just assembled a kind of a decent group here of units and then just throwing them to the enemy. But the bad thing is that these guys, the elite skirmishers, were all were obliterating my units very easily. So as you can see, this was a pretty bloody battle. Sometimes I was able to get into the lake, but then again they pushed me back into my castle. So it was a constant push of power here. So here they were able to get in this point, but that's pretty much what they were able to do, because once they reached the castle they were killed. But once I reached the lake I was killed. So it was a constant battle that took like an hour or 2 hours of fighting against the British. They were very stubborn, they didn't want to give up, and I was not able to give up myself either. So it was a battle of power. It was a constant work. So here I'm doing a huge deforestation. As you can see, all the trees have disappeared, and I have my villagers working overtime to get some extra wood, as well as my farmers to get some extra food. So as you can see, I ran out of gold by now. There's no gold, there's no stone. So yeah, so I'm just doing the same strategy. I'm just assembled some horses and some villagers, some halberdiers, and just trying to attack the enemy from that. The bad thing is that obviously the paladins were super expensive, so I have to constantly use the market to sell my overproduction of wood and food to get some gold and produce some horses. I also decided it was a good idea if I was able to create another castle here. It would give me a more balanced power, but I was never able to because I was constantly being attacked by the British, so they were not able, they won't let me create a castle there. So it was this was a pretty bloody scenario, as you can see. Always a constant fight. Also, this castle was suffering a lot of damage. Not now, but eventually it was getting pretty damaged. So every now and then I use I used some villagers to repair the castle and maintain my castle. So as you can see, the battle was pretty fierce. Every time I unleashed my units, the elite skirmishers of the British just killed my units. So it was a constant thrive for power. So at this time they were pretty much dominating the scenario. I was not able to repel the attack. Every single unit I throw at them, they were able to destroy it, and they were just throwing their lances, throwing their spears, and I was not even able to get near to them. So at this point I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna lose this. after all these hours of playing, I think I'm gonna lose this. But I never give up. So I mean, I thought I was pretty certain I was gonna lose, but I didn't give up. I thought, okay, if I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go down with fighting. So I decided to produce these guys, Hellvardiers after Hellvardiers, mixed every one of them then with the Paladins. I had no issues about producing these units because I had so much wood and so much food. So it was like I had infinite resources of wood and also infinite resources of food. The only scenario that could change if the English were able to invade my civilization. If they were able to enter my village and destroy my farmers, maybe that's when they could be able to win. But so far, they were not able to enter my north gate because I was defending it with a lot of force, with a lot of strength. But I was not able to repel them. You know, I was able to defend myself, but I was not able to, you know, to make him go back. So this battle is going to, you know, to continue for a long time. It was very, very long. The British were constantly producing units. You know, the farmers of them, they were constantly working as well. You can see they had a lot of castles, they had a lot of barracks, they have, you know, they had a lot of units here. As you can see, they were producing more and more units to destroy my north defenses. But I was also, I had a pretty efficient defense. So I decided at one point to create another castle just to upgrade my defenses in case they were able to breach my first castle. At this point I was able to make some progress, but then again they recovered the lost grounds, and we were fighting the same spot and over again. So at this point, yeah, I was not really sure if I was going to win or not, because they were not able to enter, but I was not able to conquer the space either. So we were kind of in a situation of you know, it was pretty balanced. We were not able to make any progress. In the meantime, in the west side of my gates, there was no problem. So I think the British, you know, thought that it was a good idea just to concentrate the whole power into this point instead of dividing the powers in two gates. At this point, they did some progress, but also when they reached here in this line, they were pushed back. So it was a pretty tough battle. A pretty bloody battle with lots of units lost from each side. And so yeah, it was a pretty good idea to add this second castle here because it gave me some extra push into my defenses. As you can see, the castle is holding on pretty decently. So yeah, it's a constant push back and forward of power. So the British are fighting, the French are fighting. I'm trying to produce as much as units as possible. At this point, I decided to create light cavalry because I didn't have a lot of gold, so I stopped producing paladins and I upgraded the scouts to the light cavalry. And frankly, the light cavalry started to make a lot of difference. So once I started making the light cavalry, I started making some progress. I started pushing the British finally. So as you can see, this time I was mixing the classic Hellvardiers with the light cavalry. I was doing little squads here, and once I had a decent group, I just launched them to the enemy grounds. So as you can see, once I launched the horses, I was able to push the British a bit further. They were also offering a pretty fierce defense fight, but I was also just throwing at them as many infantry as possible, and I was pushing them back and back and back. The big problem here that I thought is that I will never be able to invade them unless I destroy this little castle that is producing units, and it's also serving as a defense. So at this point, they just pushed back a little bit, but with a couple of horses, with the constant production of horses, I was able to dominate the area a little bit more. I was producing horses from here, and also at this point I was producing horses from here now. As you can see, my villagers were they were cutting trees like crazy, and my farmers were working overtime. At this point I had this little extra town center here, not pretty much, and that's pretty much it. So I was constantly producing horses, light cavalry, and the infantry here, and yeah, basically there was some time where the British stopped producing such a big amount of units. I was able to bring down the castle with this little trebuchet that I planted, and at this point I was pretty much dominating the British now. So I was able to invade them wave after wave. Now I was producing wave after wave, invading them, just infiltrating their town. I was able to start killing their workers, and the British were done now. I was able to conquer them, and even though I started pretty weak, the Germans and the British were very advanced. They were very fast. I was able to to turn the tables. So this was the gameplay. So I hope you like it. I know probably I made some noob mistakes and stuff, but I think it was pretty fun gameplay to show to you guys. I hope you like it, and see you next time. Okay, I forgot to show you the different stats. So as you can see, I'm Gravisoft, and I was fighting against Richard Lionheart and Emperor Lothair. The only point that I was able to win was economy here. All the rest were the British. Then in terms of military, I was able to destroy 26 buildings. I lost 14. I was able to gather the largest army. The economy, I obviously dominated on food and wood, but the British were able to dominate in stone and gold. Not so far from my numbers, but as you can see, the technology, they were able to evolve much faster than me. I was very slow. And society, here you can see they were able to catch some relics. I was not able to capture none. And the timeline, you can see that these are the evolutions, some battles. I was fighting the British, and I was able to be victorious. So that was pretty much the statistics of the battle. So I hope you like it, guys. See you next time. Bye.